Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Weekend Wrap brought to you by CrowCast. Joining me, as always, is Nikki. How you going, Nikki?
Very well.
Pleased to hear it. And Macca, how you doing, Mac?
Always good.
Very good. We'll crack right into it this week because we've got a bit to cover. And we'll, first of all, round up the weekend's results so far. And an interesting round so far, I think we'll all agree. Let's crack right into it, apart from our Friday night game. On Saturday, we had the Gold Coast and Port playing that useless game in China. Absolutely ridiculous game in China.
Yep.
That's got to stop. That's just, it's plain waste of money and it's shit.
Absolutely. And Port predictably getting up in front of, I counted 33 people. They reckon it was 10,600 or something, but I counted about 5. Port getting up.
Apparently there were so many in those hospitality tents, which only seat 500. And if there's all this networking going on, why aren't we seeing pictures of it?
Yeah, the other thing too is, Port used to count tarps and when they used to count the crowd down at West Lake, so God knows what they counted.
Oh, what a load of rubbish that was. Anyway, Port getting up 82-42. Gold Coast looking a bit shot. They've had a terrible run, obviously, because of the Commonwealth Games, and I reckon they'll be hanging out for that break. And hopefully, for their sake, they bounce back a little bit in the second half because there's a little bit there to work with this year, I think, for Stewie Jew.
And get a few back from injury as well.
Yeah. Exactly. North Melbourne having a really good win over GWS. GWS really struggling at the moment. Yes, they've got injuries, but as we've mentioned before, they've also got a cast of thousands. So North looking pretty strong at the moment. 112-69 down there in Tasmania, cementing themselves in the top 8.
Well, I did tip that one. So actually, the only one I didn't tip this week was the Essendon to beat Geelong, so I had a good week tipping. But
having said, people tip that one.
Yeah, but having said about North Melbourne, they're playing. I'm amazed how well they're playing. Actually, they are playing, and Brown, of course, is, and they are doing their game plan revolves very much around it. If they can get Brown out on his own and 1-on-1, well, he's very, very hard to beat. And the great big tip that, of course, we got from Donkey as well, the old timer that used to play for Carlton. What's his bloody name?
Wait.
Yeah,
wait for it. He might come good.
35. I mean, he is playing good footy. So
he certainly is.
They're playing out of their skins, and GWS, I think they're playing under their weight. Or do they not have the depth we always thought they had? I don't know.
Well, questions are going to be asked soon of GWS because if they start dropping off already after a couple of years peaking without any rewards, it's going to be a long road back without any more draft concessions for them. I think the AFL would be worried, to be honest with you.
I would think so. With all the gifts they've had, Rendell was probably right about this particular team. It should have been in the position where it could win a lot of premierships. But I did hear a figure that they've already leaked from their club to other clubs over 20-odd players that were taken in first rounds and second rounds. Well,
they took a different route, didn't they, to Gold Coast? They went all youth, and eventually it was going to hurt them in the salary cap as these blokes got some game time and showed their class, and whereas Gold Coast tried to get a balance, and that probably didn't work either, but perhaps Gold Coast's model might prove to be more sustainable in the longer term. I don't know. Anyway, it's probably a conversation for another time. Essendon...
There's no experience and there's no hardness in that team.
No, that's right. You've mentioned it before, Nick, and I agree with you. They've got no ticker when the going gets tough. Anyway, speaking of ticker, Essendon getting up over Geelong at the G, 84.50. If anyone tipped that in the chat, good on you, because I certainly didn't. I don't think anyone saw that coming.
Interesting.
I heard a really good point today from the Triple M guys when they were discussing the game, and what they pointed out was whilst Geelong have this great midfield, they don't have a tagger, and they won't tag someone. And the thing is that Merritt has struggled when you put a tag on him. He's as bad as Sloan. We didn't put a tag on him, and he played well. When Essendon have played well, he hasn't had a tag. Exactly the same thing happened on the weekend.
Yeah, well, Guthrie's been their tagger, hasn't he? And
he's not there.
He's not playing, so you're right.
My understanding is that they got Scott Selwood, so he can be a tagger.
Yeah.
And he was a tagger at West Coast.
Yeah, I don't actually think Scott Selwood's that good, to be honest.
No.
And in any case, did he play? I don't even think he played, did he? No, he didn't play either.
I'm sure you don't. I'm sure he. No, I don't think he did. The little point I was going to make there was the interesting thing about. I did hear them talking about that Mark Neild. One of the reasons they got rid of him was that the way the communications was going was from players, coaches, etc. Everything had to go to Mark Neild to go to Waterfield, and he wasn't necessarily passing it on. He was using his own filter, and things that they wanted to go to the coach weren't going to the coach. Which is why they got rid of him. Now, of course, it gets to go straight to the coach. So, interesting enough, and bang, out they come.
Well, it's a pretty stupid structure, really. I mean, why does Worsfold need a conduit between himself and the players? I mean, he's got his line coaches. Why the hell does he need another go-between? It's probably his mistake, I reckon.
Absolutely.
Or is it something, a holdover of them trying to protect the coach after the stupidity of the drug saga?
Neild had nothing to do with that.
No, he didn't, but they had a very convoluted reporting system, and it seems they've kind of stuck to that a little bit. So I wonder whether that's part of it.
Look, it might be overkill on their behalf.
Well, they said that while Neild was there, and it was the same when he was a coach, and when he was the coach, the players could not understand the game plan he was trying to communicate. Now, he's gone, bango, they certainly knew what they were doing on the weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah, but even then, the coach was not happy in the press conference, if you saw it. That was hilarious.
Look, I think one of the Geelong's biggest problems, and let's not dwell on this too much, but I think one of Geelong's biggest problems is they haven't got a focal point. You know, they've got Hawkins up there who's very hot and cold, and he wasn't playing, obviously. Menzel is hot and cold, and then, you know, a string of kind of maybe almost kind of players, but they're really lacking in the goal kicking department. They don't have any targets.
Hawkins was playing, but he was his typical shit.
Yeah, they're not that good.
Anyway, Sydney 1-1-1 to Fremantle 52. That was a really odd game because Fremantle had a fair amount of the ball, but they didn't seem to know what to do with it. Yeah,
well, they don't have a great deal of method, but they got. I think they're a team with tremendous work rate and not a great deal of method.
I felt like I watched a bit of that game, and I felt like they were holding up okay, but they just had no avenue to goal, and you know, who they got? They got McCarthy up there. They need someone else to stand up, and at the moment they lack a focal point. They're really struggling without Pavlich up there, and I don't think what's his name, McCarthy. He's not doing enough. Taberner's obviously the one that they had earmarked, and he's injured at the moment. So
he was a big loss to them.
Yeah, definitely, because they don't have many stocks in that regard. So I felt like if you have a look at the stats, Sydney's midfield didn't get huge numbers. Nat 5 had a reasonably good game despite being a little bit injured by the looks of it.
And Waters kept missing. So if Waters was kicking those goals, which he normally does against us, he's actually their main forward. He's their main damaging forward. But he was just, his target was off.
Yeah, no, but Hewitt tagged Fife, and he kept him very, very quiet second and third quarters, and game all over then. And Fife broke out a little bit in the last quarter, but no good.
Well, Nat Fife, I think, was struggling. He spent a fair amount of time on the bench. during that time, Macca, and I don't think he's right at the moment. But I hope it's nothing long term because I've got good money on him on the Brownlows. Anyway, let's move on. Collingwood took a while to shake off St Kilda this weekend. Eddie had, but they eventually got over the line 100-72. I think that's the biggest score St Kilda have kicked all season. No, it is. No, I'm not even joking. I think it is.
Not even a good score.
I don't think they've got over 65 points or something or other, I read.
Well, it doesn't say much for them.
Let's just say I got bored of the football and switched over and watched a wedding instead.
I actually didn't get to see this game because somebody who I won't mention, and her name's Mrs. Macca, right. She had the royal wedding on and that was it.
Yeah, it was good. That was way more fun.
There's a guy, a BBC commentator called Steve McCoy. I don't know whether you've heard of him, but he's quite sarcastic at the best of times. And the BBC, I think, played a cruel joke on him and made him cover the royal wedding despite his obvious disdain for the royal wedding. And I shared his disdain, and the only thing that I saw about the whole thing was little cuts of him huffing and sighing on Twitter and little memes and whatnot. So I managed to avoid it.
I
saw
do.
It all.
There is one thing though. You need to check out the BBC Three tweet. They took a photo of the long walk with all the crowds and put it up against Trump's inauguration crowd. It just went, huh? And it was just
funny.
like, oh, that was superb. That was a beautiful piece of shade from the BBC Three towards Trump.
Anyway, let's crack on. Today we had Melbourne smashing Carlton by 109 points, 159-50. The little sneaky look that Carlton had for a minute. No Kerno, yeah, exactly right.
And also Kaz bowled up forward. They just had nothing up forward.
Yeah.
Nothing.
No, and got belted in the midfield too. It's going to be a challenging game for the Crows next week in Alice. Anyway,
yes.
Now, is this game finished? West Coast Richmond? I think it's finished.
Yes, it has. That was a really good game.
Logged them. Yeah, I watched that.
Yeah. About 50 points in the end, 130-83. West Coast clear on top of the ladder now. And Richmond, look, I don't think they'd be terribly disappointed by that loss.
Well, they weren't playing on their home ground with their home crowd as they normally do.
No. The interesting one...
They're not that good either.
Oh, I don't think you can say that. But the interesting one for Richmond will be next week against St Kilda, who just showed a bit against Collingwood. And
yeah, they did actually.
The old game after the Optus Stadium game has bitten a few Victorian teams, and I just wonder whether Richmond might just struggle next week. That'll be interesting to watch. And
West Coast were bashing them up. They were hard at them. And particularly Martin, he was getting caught. He was getting holding the balls against him.
Well, they tagged him, and he actually doesn't perform that well when he's being tagged either.
No. There's not many who do, though, Macca, let's be honest. No,
that's actually true. And the other thing, too, the old story about a good big man will beat a good little man is definitely right. And West Coast have got some good big men when you look at it, too. Darling in particular, who's a fine athlete, big man, and he kicked 6 for the personal best. They've got Kennedy. They've got Naitanui. He was really leaping high today.
Yeah. He's a bonus for them, Nat Nui.
Yeah, so it was a good game to watch, wasn't it, Nikki?
Yeah, it was. Very good game to watch.
West Coast.
Plus, it's also Richmond getting smacked.
Yeah, West Coast proving themselves, at least at this stage of the year, to be the real deal. I think with West Coast, if they might struggle if they get a few injuries. I don't think their depth is huge. And you mentioned Darling, Macca. He's a good player when he's on, but he does run a bit hot and cold. So,
and he needs Kennedy. He needs Kennedy as the foil.
Yeah. Yeah. But they're ticking over nicely at the moment. And then the second big upset for the weekend is the last game of the round. Brisbane's Hawthorn.
Which I tipped. It.
You tipped it, Macca.
I thought about it, and then I went, nah, I'll tip Hawthorn. I'll be safe. Because I've been shit my tips.
Well, I think Hawthorn has been sort of squeezing. Clarkson's been squeezing the best out of Hawthorn. And Brisbane Lions up there, in particular, they've been in a winning position against some very good sides.
Yeah.
And they've just failed in the last few minutes to capitalise on it. And I thought, this is a team I think that they just might get, and they did.
Yeah, PJ Crow's in the chat also tipped Brisbane, so I'm going to ban him from the chat. That's
yeah, but he is a very
right.
good judge. PJ's a good
PJ
judge.
Crow's? Come on.
Yeah. No, he's
he's so negative. Love you, PJ. For me, what I actually liked, and normally I hate the stupid Channel 7 sounds of the game wank thing, but they mic'd up, what's his name, Merritt, who's now the runner for Brisbane, and it was really interesting listening to him.
Oh,
and
I heard that, yes.
Yeah, it was really good. And also Hodgie talking on the sidelines. When he came off, they actually talked to Hodgie from the sidelines, go, no, this is what we're doing.
You must have been doing a little bit of channel flicking like I was, Nikki.
Oh, no, I stuck with that one, and then I flicked over afterwards.
Right.
Look, I think you're right about Brisbane, Mackie. A good indicator is always percentage, and their percentage isn't too bad, and it hasn't been too bad. It's not the second worst in the comp, despite them being 17th. So it shows that they've been around the mark, as you say, and it's a good scout for them to get. And, you know, let's not forget that it's Hawthorn. Did Brisbane beat Hawthorn last year?
I can't remember that, but
I'll have a look.
Because you can't discount the Fagan-Hodge factor in that win. If ever there was a game to watch, if you want the blueprint to beat Hawthorn, you watch how Brisbane played them, because that's got Fagan and Hodge written all over it.
That's an excellent point you just raised there.
Yeah.
Excellent point.
Yeah. Anyway, look, let's crack on there. The scores, quickly the ladder. Now that all games are played, we've got West Coast clear on top by a game. Richmond then alone in second. Then we've got 4 teams on 24 points. Melbourne, Adelaide, Sydney and Port. Then we've got North and Geelong in the 8 on 20 points, and Hawthorn and Collingwood just out of the 8 on 20 points. GWS on the slide on 18 points and getting close to parity on percentage as well, GWS. Freo on 16 points with the Bulldogs. Essendon Gold Coast on 12. St Kilda on 6. And then Brisbane and Carlton both on 4, although you'd imagine that those two sides are going in opposite directions at the moment.
Yes.
And let's hook straight into the Crows v Dogs game.
Get ugly. Damn, that's ugly.
I reckon when the players ran out onto the ground and looked at the weather, that's exactly what they said. Damn, that's ugly. It was a shocker.
Well, it was dry beforehand. It just kind of started just before the bounce, and then it would stop in the freaking breaks, and then it would start up again. And then at the end of the game, it stopped. It was just like the most annoying weather ever. I've never experienced rain during a game like that. And the Fremantle game, which was, it was, I reckon it was actually worse than the Fremantle game.
It was heavier. There was more standing water, I felt, on Friday night. I mean, we'd had a fair bit of rain, and it was interesting because I think someone had said at Henley that hardly had any rain, and yet I'm in the Mitcham area, and it bloody rained all day on Friday here.
Yeah, it came from down south.
Yeah.
It came over the hill. All morning it was coming over that hill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
it didn't rain down the Glenelg way either, I don't think.
And it was interesting when in the third quarter, I think it was, when it kind of dried up a little bit in terms of the rain itself. The game changed for 10 or 15 minutes, where the ball actually stayed a little bit drier. Credit to the ground that it drained so quickly, and obviously.
I remember that patch. Yeah.
So anyway, it was a good win by the Crows in the end. 9 goals, 9-63 to the Bulldogs. 2 goals, 14-26. A margin there of 30.
They definitely should have had one of those goals.
7 points, yes, definitely. That first one was a bit rich.
Stinker, absolute stinker. That one.
But look, as a general comment before we get into the stats, I just felt like, given our outs and given the pressure that's been on the club this week, and given that the Bulldogs could have made life interesting for us with their centre clearance work and stoppage work so far over the last month or so. I thought it was an excellent effort game from Adelaide this week.
Oh, it was, and led by the two guys that haven't played all that many games, only in the 20 odds in Greenwood and Cameron Ellis-Yeoman. Those two boys, outstanding. Their physical efforts was just outstanding.
Now, what did we complain about for the Collingwood game about our selection?
Well,
we said we knew it was going to be a wet game and we went in too tall.
Yes.
We didn't go in too tall this game, but who did? Bulldogs.
Well, they did go in too tall. Very strange.
I still felt we were one tall too many. I think we could have actually done without Fogarty, as you know. I think we could have gone a little bit shorter.
Well, you noticed that we used Otten in the ruck because we needed to keep Jenkins a little bit more up forward. So that's why we had Fogarty. So then when Jenkins went off for his rest, Fogarty was our single tall forward.
Not
so
forgetting
we still had
that
to have one.
Not forgetting that when we played Freo last year in that wet game, we were pretty tall that week as well. And
that
was a freak of a game, that one.
But what I will say this is, I suppose if you look at all the stats, and I haven't really done this, but I wouldn't be surprised if there wasn't that much difference in the stats. It was just the difference within how the game was played. Adelaide choosing to kick at every opportunity, and the Bulldogs attempting far too much handball.
What the hell was he thinking, Beveridge?
No, he's come in the presser. He said, no, they were supposed to kick. They weren't supposed to handball.
That's an absolute load of rubbish.
Yeah, so you've got some dumb players, if that's the case.
Yeah, but they did it the whole game.
Exactly, Macca.
So I think that's easy for him to say after the game when he's absolutely fucked up with his game plan and it hasn't worked.
Yeah.
But it was ours was very simple. It was kick the ball.
Yeah.
And we did actually change it up a little bit in the third quarter. So whilst we were trying to do that kick and it wasn't quite working, Jacobs was then just thumping it way forward out of the ruck contest. There was a little passage of play along the outer wing where the ball would come in and we would just do a little tap down to get that little run on. And it was really obvious that it happened like 3 in a row. Okay, we've changed it up. We've figured out that sometimes those other little kicks aren't quite working with how they're setting up. We'll just do a little tap on to advantage, and we always have the runner going past.
I felt like Beveridge didn't adapt their game plan at all, Western Bulldogs. Whether he didn't anticipate exactly how wet it was going to be, although you'd think that they'd been here, long enough to see what the weather pattern's going to be. But it was a ridiculous brand of football that they played, and they didn't change it up at any stage during the night, as you rightly point out, Macca. And they just spent a lot of time going nowhere with the ball.
Exactly.
And apparently Easton Wood was on game day this morning, and he said they didn't. Yeah, they weren't prepared for that wet weather, and they didn't like playing in it.
But I mean, they should have been prepared.
Dude, it's a winter sport. This is what happens.
I mean, they play every bloody game at Etihad. That's why. But I mean,
spot on.
They should have been prepared for that weather. I mean, you know what the weather's going to be. You've got access to radars and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, but they don't train underneath the roof. When they train, it must rain some nights as well. So I mean, that's bullshit.
I mean, if Beveridge wants to use as an excuse for just being a bad coach, so be it. But there's enough smart people around to know better than that. Let's have a look at some of the head-to-heads, Macca. And despite having 68 more disposals than us Western Bulldogs, they actually had less kicks than us by 22. 234 kicks to 212. We only had 96 handballs. It was the lowest handball count I've seen for a long time. They had 186, double the amount of handballs. For a total of 68 more disposals.
Circle that just kind of slippery handball.
Yep.
I can't get it. Well, we're going to class it as a handball. I think if you go back and watch the tape, probably half of them aren't.
God, yeah.
There were so many throws. And then we would just sit on the outside and turn it over.
Yeah, they had no plan. So kick to handball ratio, us nearly 2.5, and them almost 1-1. It was just stupid. As a consequence, 45 marks to 34. 45 marks in those conditions is excellent. Both teams set new personal bests for tackles. Adelaide 114, Western Bulldogs 118. Hit out Source did a right 57-40 over Tom Boyd. Let's have a look. Our clearances 53-35 was a fantastic effort, and despite the criticism of the Bulldogs game plan, I think that's obviously where we want our clearance work. Stoppage clearances 44-29. Centre clearance is fairly even, 9-6, but so many stoppages obviously, and as you rightly pointed out earlier, Macca, Greenwood and CEY had and also Bryce Gibbs, particularly in the second half, had fantastic games.
Good game by him, Gibbsy, as well. Yeah.
I sent him back to Carlton though. His kick for goal. That kick for goal. I warned him. I said unless he actually the second kick he had, and I told him, you missed this. And you're going back to Carlton, so he has to go back to Carlton.
So he's on a plane. Right. Contested possessions 213 to 193 shows our effort. Overall, 173 effective disposals to 222 from the Bulldogs. Obviously, that highlighting the Bulldogs' overuse. Both teams going at around about 52, or Bulldogs 55% disposal efficiency. Contested marks pretty meaningless, 9-7. We took 7 marks to 5 inside 50. 46-35 rebound 50s. Bulldogs are recording almost 20 more 1%ers. I don't know. God knows what that actually means. And they had a lot more score involvements. Obviously 58-36 because they're just messing around with the damn thing. But the other telling stat was that despite them having more of the ball, we gained about 600 more metres than them over the course of the evening. So, and tackles inside 50 was pretty even. That's the head-to-head stuff, and it's pretty obvious, I think.
Yeah, so just an overarching comment regarding that, yes, they had all those inside 50s and they were having their shots on goals, but they were all very wide. We were very good at pushing them out wide and denying them that corridor space. So a lot of those shots on goals were not easy shots, particularly in the wet.
Well, they had 7 rush behind. So, 5 rush behind. So, really, it's 2 goals, 9. And as you rightly say, Nick, they weren't missing easy shots that I can't remember them missing any easy, shots like Bryce.
Well, in those conditions, no shot is really
well, except for Eddie Betts.
Oh, Eddie is a freak. He is a freak.
Good to see him back too. Look, let's go through some individual stats, and we'll just go on disposal count. Rory Laird had his usual high number, although less than 30. 16 kicks, 12 handballs for 28. 4 marks, 4 tackles.
Yeah, Mr. Dependable.
Yeah, down a little bit on disposal efficiency, as all of them except DMAC were. 15 contested, gained 381 metres, but importantly for our defence, 14 intercept possessions as well. Another solid game from the Gnome.
Yep.
Agree.
Yep. Look, Ellis Yeoman, I thought was almost our best player, certainly in our top 3. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. 27 disposals, 17 and 10, 6 tackles, 6 clearances, 2 rebound 50s, 21 contested possessions, a team high if you don't mind. Disposal efficiency down, but who cares? Stoppage clearances was 7, so he was most effective around stoppage as well.
He usually bulked beautifully to move other players off the ball, and so that he could get the ball. I just thought the conditions suited him, and I just thought he played a fantastic game and definitely in the best 3.
Yeah. The other pleasing thing from Ellis Yeoman, sorry Nick, just quickly on the stat, is he gained 450 metres. His go has been the quick give out of the packs or the pokey kick, but he was actually able to gain some good meterage for us as well. So that's something that I reckon just more games into him and we'll get more effective disposals out of him in terms of that stat?
I think the fact that they had Gibson around as well, who was minding McRae, so they didn't have to. He was sometimes on McRae, but other times it was Gibson. But he was so influential in that first half. He didn't have a lot of stats, but just being there and watching him at the ground, his presence around those contests was immense.
Yeah, it was, Nicky. I agree.
Yeah. Gibson had 20 touches, 11 and 9, 8 tackles, 5 clearances, 11 contested possessions.
He's a running machine, this guy.
And he just put pressure on McRae. So McRae had those 36 possessions, 24 handballs, most of them freaking useless, and probably half of them not even handballs, because he had to get rid of it. He was going to get hammered as soon as he got the ball.
Yeah, I was going to ask Phoenix whether he had McRae's efficiency rating there.
McRae is some sort of player at the moment.
He's a star.
He had 36 disposals, 12 and 24, so he handled too much like the rest of their team. But he had 13 tackles, he had 10 clearances, 4 inside 50s, 2 rebound 50s, 25 contested possessions, when it's 72% disposal efficiency.
But he's giving that ball, so that disposal efficiency is up so high because he's giving that handball to a player that's not even a metre away from him. He was giving. I went back. I watched the replay. I went, okay, I want to see this. What's he doing? He was not damaging. He wasn't really that damaging.
Well,
Nicky, he's a bloody good player.
He is a bloody good player, but he wasn't that good on Friday night.
No, but that's the game. Well, he was, but that was their game plan, Nick. It wasn't him as an individual. You can't. He laid 13 tackles and made 10 and got 10 clearances, and 25 contested possessions. You just can't. You can't knock that.
I'd love him on the outside because don't forget he's being tagged as well, Nicky.
Well, and he was on for nearly 90% of the game.
Yeah,
but he still wasn't that damaging.
Yeah, but that, as I said, that's not on him. That's on their game plan.
Yeah,
they played the same they play every week. So, under normal circumstances, those sorts of numbers would be fantastic. But as we pointed out, Beveridge had them playing the same game plan, and so it wasn't effective. But he's a gun at the moment. You just can't knock it.
I was super impressed with him. He absolutely under pressure, and you're right, Nicky, about the fact about the ultimate damage. But he, as Phoenix quite rightly points out, he doesn't run the game plan. He does what the coach tells him to do, and he did it despite all the massive pressure that he was under.
Yeah. Let's keep going with us. Bryce Gibbs had 19 and 7 for 26, 8 tackles, which was excellent, 10 clearances also, 17 contested. Yes, a welcome return to form for Bryce, actually. 17 contested possessions, 7 stoppage clearances, 3 centre clearances, gained 500-odd metres. 6
clean hands.
Yeah, just he looked classy at times again, and he looked to be running on top of the ground again a little bit. So whether he's just gone through a little bit of a down patch or whether he's been a little bit ill, I'm not sure. But he certainly looked the goods again. I just about had him as our best, to be honest. Yeah,
I had him up. Well, Nick Rewalt put him as the best on ground. And I actually really rate Nick Rewalt's opinion because of how influential he was. He may not have had like those major possessions like McRae did, but what he did with it was so much more damaging. He should have had at least 3 free kicks in the forward lines as well. But I wonder if we kind of got that from him because he had to step into Matt Crouch's role because Matt's not there. So he's actually normally playing second fiddle to Matt, whereas this time he became the main man.
It's actually a really good observation, Nicky.
It is a good observation. You surprised me, Nicky.
Hey!
No, we've got him on this show for a reason, you know.
After you the do-day call, I thought you gave me some credit, but come on again.
No, this is your second lot of credit.
We've been doing this for how many years and I've only got 2 lots?
I'm sure there's another one somewhere.
But look, you're right, Nick, because 17 contested possessions for Bryce. I think he's been going at single figures for the last 3-4 weeks. So to get that output out of him, I think it's indicative of the fact that Crouchy wasn't there. I think you're dead set right.
Agree.
Back in your box, Macca. Seedsman. Seedsman, 18 and 4, 6 tackles, 6 inside 50s, 6 clearances, 14 contested. Turn it over a little bit, only 40% efficiency, but who cares?
On a night like that, him just getting that ball and booting it to try and advantage, yeah, you're going to get some coming back. Because it had to be, a lot of them had to be very quick kicks.
Yeah.
Just in the general direction. And PJ Crows has said he's borderline All-Australian. He's not borderline All-Australian. If they actually put Wingman in properly, then he's definitely in.
Yeah, I think you're both right. I think what you said is 100% correct, Nikki. But unfortunately, what I think PJ's taking into account, they usually bung midfielders out on the wings as well just to get more of them in.
Well, him, Gaff, and Isaac Smith are basically saying you can't put other midfielders in there. You cannot. Those three are having outstanding seasons on the wing.
If they were genuine, he would be in it at the moment.
Yeah. Now, here's an interesting one. Richie Douglas. I don't think I've ever seen a player get 21 possessions, all of which were kicks. 21 kicks, no handballs. So he was following the game plan, that's for sure. 5 tackles.
Normally, isn't that like a backman who stays in the goal square and only gets the 21 kicks because of the kick out?
I didn't pick that up.
Dougie was back playing under 8s. Get it and kick it.
He listens to the coach.
Oh, there's a lad playing for Westies, Mitch Millen, that I coached in primary school footy for about 5 years. And his old man was a classic because every time Mitch would get it, he'd go, "Kick it, Mitch!" And that's what obviously Dougie was doing on Friday night. Get it, kick it, get it, kick it, get it, kick it.
Oh, I'm fascinated by
DSG has actually said Kevin Bartlett.
Yeah. Well, since the days of Kevin Bartlett, this is the only one. I've never seen stats like that before, I don't think.
It's pretty interesting.
The one thing that I thought that Dougie did show us again, and look, no lack of effort from Dougie, and not a bad game from Dougie, but his peripheral vision is almost zero. He, again, spoiled somebody's about to take a chest mark, and Dougie managed to dive in front of him and spoil it. I just think he hasn't got good peripheral vision.
No, I don't know. It's sort of, I don't know. Look, I can't criticise any of our team this week because I just feel like the effort was really good, and that's about all you can judge on a night like that. So,
right.
To pick up 21 touches and gain, 522 metres, 12 contested possessions, decent night from Douglas. Huey Greenwood was the other. He went through a patch, Greenwood, during the game, and I think it might have been the third. I
think it was in the third quarter.
Last. He just went crazy at stoppage.
He dominated everything. Yeah. I think it was the third quarter. I wouldn't bet right.
It might have been the last, third or the last. I can't quite remember. But
no, I think it was in the last because we fast forwarded the third quarter. I think
15 and 5, 11 tackles for a team high, 10 clearances equal with his mate, 19 contested possessions, 9 stoppage clearance, so that's a team high around stoppage. Didn't gain as many metres, but I tell you what, what I noticed about Huey more than anything was his second, third and fourth efforts. He just does not leave the contest until he's got nothing left to give. And some of his repeat efforts around the ball in that sort of those conditions was just second to none.
If you drew a graph of his career, if he continues on the path he's on at the moment, he's going to become one of the premier midfielders.
Now, what was his time on ground, Phoenix? Because I heard it was about similar to Fogarty.
69.
So he's one of the lowest time on ground.
Yep.
But interesting enough, you look at it against Port, those last 4 clearances, he went punter then.
Yep.
And he's kind of doing similar here. We're putting him on the last when the other midfielders are tired, and we're putting that big body midfielder in who's fresh.
Nikki, you're on fire tonight because that's another really good observation. we've done that before with Huey, where we seem to give him a bit of a rest through the middle of the game, and he comes on late. And you're right, he did go nuts. Last 4 clearances against Port, and he had that.
I'm going to say we got a fraud with us tonight. That's not Nicky.
Well, Macca,
Hey,
Macca, I reckon you're going to have
you're
to
getting
start
the
working.
Cockwomble nomination now.
I misheard that. Sorry, Macca,
It's aimed at Macca.
you're going to have to work on your what you're bringing to the table, Macca, because you're getting outdone tonight. That's for sure. But Huey Greenwood, as you rightly point out, 25 games and the trajectory that he's running on. He's some sort of player. I mean, he is some sort of player.
Oh, he's just keeping on improving and improving and improving, and he's picking up all the little nuances of a midfielder. Because this is not something that he's experienced in. He's sort of been developed into a midfielder, and because I think my understanding was he was a forward in his younger days. But
Yep.
he's I just think he's just picking up all the little bits and pieces about it, and at a rapid rate, and the way he uses his body and the strength he's got, I just think he's going to be an absolute beauty.
Well, the capacity for him to stay in the contest after the first or second effort, and to continually put his body in the right positions to be a chance, it really stood out on that night. And it's not the first time he's played like that, obviously, but it really stood out. He just needs, if we can get a yard of pace into him, that'd be great. Anyway, let's move on. Eddie Betts kicking his 250th goal for the club, and it was another little left foot special from the boundary in the wet, if you don't mind.
That was beautiful.
Never looked like missing. And it was
Macca,
great.
were you at the game?
No, I was smart. I was watching telly.
Okay, because we're sitting on the opposite side of the ground, so we're in the outer. And I'm like, well, he's going for it, but those kicks, normal game, Eddie would make this. But this wet, not so sure. The kick's gone off his boot. It is halfway towards the goal, and you can hear the roar from the members just come across the ground. Before it even went through,
Yeah,
they
it was never
knew.
missing. It was never missing. He flushed it.
Oh, it was just, but that roar coming across the ground, and we're all just sitting there waiting for it to go through going, shit. But I was disappointed in Eddie because he didn't kick one from the pocket where he gets his AFL Goal of the Year nominations from, but he did it from 3 other pockets. Come on, all 4.
Back to Carlton.
They need all the help they can get.
I felt like, his stats weren't huge, but I felt like he was back to being dangerous, Eddie. He was creating havoc in the forward lines. He was always in and amongst it, and is back to making the opposition defence think about where he is. And I think he's starting to inch back into a little bit of form. Obviously, had the hammy early in the season and maybe took a little while to get back into the swing of things. But it was a welcome return to form for Betts on Friday night. I felt he looked really good.
Well, that was Eddie's very best.
Yeah, and what it also was is Huey actually said it after the game, was that they had so many of their leaders out except for Lynch is the only official one who was on the field. Or is Talia in the group? But he talked about how the other guys, they really stepped up, and particularly Eddie.
Charlie's not in this year, Nicky.
Well, we know he still is a leader down back. So he's controlling that back lines. And so Eddie, you actually had really contributing to it. Although there was one point where he started to go for the ball and then he stopped and Baholke kind of stopped and then the ball lands in the middle and they run away. And they just kind of both pointed at each other. I thought you were going for it. And Eddie's like, no.
That's the young lad deferring to the senior.
Yeah, and
that one.
And Eddie, but Eddie's such a team man that he just backed off because Baholke had a better run at it.
It's the only time Eddie hasn't flown for a mark all year, for God's sake. Look,
it was a contested thing coming in.
Yeah, D-Mac played well, 14 and 1 for 15, had 4 marks, 8 tackles, 3 inside 50s, 2 clearances, 7 rebound 50s. went at a game high, I think. Yeah, game high, 73% disposal efficiency. Gained 450 odd metres. It was a really solid game from D-Mac, and he continues to put his body in.
He's had a very good year so far, and I get annoyed when I still see on Big Footy some comments that he shouldn't be in the side, and I just think at the moment the way he's playing, people that make those comments don't know anything about footy.
That take he took where he just ran past his man and just tacked that ball in the wet, the confidence to do that when he's actually pretty much the last defender, it was a thing of beauty to watch happen.
Yeah. I'm not saying that there haven't been in the past. There's been years when McKay's been very lucky to be in the side, but his footy this year has been very good.
Yep.
Yeah, we lost Brown, but we put him back there in his stead, and he was sort of chopping and changing a little bit. We were trying to keep him a bit more up forward, but occasionally he would go deep.
Full squad, is he still best 22?
Oh, that might be a different story, but I'm going by the fact of what.
Yeah. No. I'm just asking. I'm posing the question. I guess is it? I'm not sure actually.
Well, for me, on the bench, yes, because you've got him to play back, you've got him to play wing. You can rotate through those positions if needed. Well, and he has gone in the midfield. He's a handy depth player to have. When he comes on, he's going to give you that 110%. Well, he knows his role.
The full squad includes Smith coming back as well.
Yeah.
Smith starts on the field.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at.
No, he's borderline. He's borderline, and like you say, Macca, he's earned his spot, and he's making the best of it at the moment. And certainly, we're not losing anything by having him on the side at this stage. I think he's doing his job really well, and he's putting his body in as he usually does. D-Mac. It's one thing you can't really criticise about him.
No, he risks it.
Yeah. Look, Tommy Lynch, it wasn't really a game for Lynchy, I suppose, although I felt that he wasn't working hard enough which is unusual for Tom, hard enough to get involved.
At the ground, yeah, he was, in spite of those weather conditions, we actually thought he had a decent game. Because he was doing a lot of stuff you wouldn't see on the TV.
Yeah, but Nicky, he had a very good first quarter.
He did.
He only had 15 possessions for the game, when I say only, but I think he had about 7 or 8 of those at least in the first quarter. So which means that he didn't touch the ball a lot after that.
He was still, for those kind of conditions, because it got worse, the type of running player that he is, that he couldn't get away as much from like his normal play. Because you contrast it with how easy was it for Otten to close down and Kelly to close down, who were not quick players either. So in terms of that, taking that into account, I thought his game was fine.
But I thought his influence on the game waned as it went on. That's my point.
Mm.
No, PJ points out he opened up the 50 for us. He covered a lot of ground. He still kept running and was creating the space and often being a decoy.
Well, you could say he opened up the 50, or you could say that he was running the wrong positions. It's probably, come on, PJ. You glass half full or glass half empty.
PJ's actually being positive towards the Crows.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to cut him down.
How often does that happen?
Trying to cut him down. Anyway, look, you can't have 22 players getting 30 kicks, so... Look, today I thought was solid. In fact, all our defence was solid. I thought today Otten Tiles was good.
I thought Dodo was very good, actually.
Yeah.
Can I highlight who the best player in terms of the defence was actually Hardigan.
I was going to say only if you say Hardigan. I thought it was an excellent return from Kyle.
And because he's on JJ, his ability to, because he can play on those quicker players, he's got such a bigger body, they're not used to countering that. They're used to having a slimmer one, whereas he's quick, but he's bigger, so they can't get around him. But what that then did was it not only freed up Duday, it also freed up Otten. So we actually had two that could drop off very easily and, create that pressure out. But just watching him play, I think it was halfway through the second quarter, we all just kind of turned to each other and going, yeah, this is showing that we've really missed Hardigan.
Yeah, he played a very good game, and I've got no lobotomy comments about him this week either. I thought he was very good.
Look, I think your lobotomy comments are misguided, Macca, on Kyle. I think he's an underestimated defender, and I think he's versatile. He can play tall or small, and yes, he's not. You know, he reminds me a lot of Benny Rutten, except he's more agile. You get what you get from Hardigan, and I don't think you can expect an outlet player from him, but he will shut a guy down. And I thought, you know, credit where it's due. I felt like he made our defence look more solid, but I felt overall our defence played particularly well in terms of their positioning all night. They didn't get caught napping too much. They were able to cover when the ball went over the back pretty well. And by and large, the Bulldogs didn't really have a forward line. No one really threatened.
My comments about Hardigan really made... I think he's a great player when he plays on instinct. When he really stuffs up is when he thinks I'll do something clever. And that's when he does that short little cross pass back to the middle and kicks it to the opposition instead. Yeah, and they're the ones that get me, and they're the ones I refer to as your lobotomy ones.
Yeah,
but when he plays on natural instinct, he's a very good player.
Yeah,
and I'll also say that little passage of play where Laird did the rundown on Johannesson to pressure the kick, and then the way Kelly used his body and his smarts
it was good
to stop that certain goal.
Yeah.
Right? Kelly he's not a fashionable defender. This is what you get from him. You get 110% effort and he refuses to get beaten.
Yeah, massive effort player.
Yep. Look, Rory Atkins had an interesting night. I didn't feel like the conditions suited him at all, and I felt
he did tackles.
Yeah, but that's probably because people fell into his arms.
Jumped into it.
To be fair on him, Fiend, he actually he had to do tackles, and he actually did some hard body work.
Yeah, three tackles.
And we noticed that last week as well.
3 tackles.
Very quiet night.
Clark Kent. Look, the knock I had on Atkins is that I don't feel like he read the play in the conditions very well. I felt like he was out of position quite often. But, you know, again, you can't have everyone pulling in 15, 20 touches. So it wasn't really an outside runner's night, but I felt like Rory could have gotten himself a little bit more involved. Particularly, he was on for most of the game. Josh Jenkins, I think, did what he could do. He's a big boy. The ball's on the ground. I felt he contested when he needed to.
9 tackles.
9 tackles, exactly right. Contributed to our forward line pressure. So I thought it was a solid game from Josh despite the low numbers.
He's turned the corner on what the criticism early in the season when he wasn't working hard enough, and obviously the club's spoken to him about it as well. And credit where it's due, he's turned the corner in that respect.
No, I think it's actually more that he's had a bit of a word back to the club about letting him play deeper instead of having to do the run up and the back. He actually had a meeting with Pikey and he said, no, let me work out of the goal square and I will give you results. This is what I've heard prior to the Richmond game.
Right.
Okay.
And that's what he did. He said, trust me. He said to Pikey, trust me working out of the goal square and I'll get you results. And look at that Richmond game.
Do you serve the muffins down there, Nick?
No. But they're very nice muffins.
Yeah, let's not talk about that. We still haven't done the write-up.
I know.
Look, I think the biggest difference, despite the positioning, I think the biggest difference in Josh this year has just been his effort. It hasn't always looked
absolutely
coordinated. It hasn't always looked natural, but it's been there, and that's really all you want from your big fella. And I think that's fine.
All we could ask.
I've really appreciated his physicality.
Yeah,
that he's been showing.
Exactly.
He's been, and he's inviting that and he's dishing it out.
Yep.
Well, that's what Phoenix and I have been asking for.
Yep, and credit where it's due, Mac. It's he's bringing it to the table, so that's what you want.
And several weeks in a row now.
Yeah, Well, most of the season, to be perfectly honest. So, you know. Hey, Gallucci, I wasn't a big fan of Jordan, but I see something in him. He's clean, isn't he? And he's quick and he's tough. Don't mind the look of, like, he didn't get a huge amount of the ball, but I just, you know, with young kids, you just see something sometimes, and a couple of times he's straight lining the ball and his ability to take contact and his hands are good. I was impressed.
You stole my line. I was going to say
mate.
exactly line for line, and word for word, what you just said. That hardly, he didn't get a lot of touches, but gee, there was something about him, the way he did it, that really caught your eye, and you thought that kid can play. And you know, he's got a good acceleration. He's not frightened to go in. He's not a bad user of the ball. His brain works pretty quickly, and he's probably being played slightly prematurely at this stage, but that's the way you learn. And I think he'll be a player of the future. I'm going to actually compare him to Paholke, who got 50% more possessions. He got 12. I thought probably it was Paholke's best game at this level, and whether it was suited because of the fact that it was wet, therefore it's played at a slower tempo because he isn't the fastest of players, and I think that's probably. He's not, because he's certainly not frightened, that boy. And he's not, you know, he's got a strong body and he's not frightened to get amongst it. And I thought he played a pretty good game for Holke.
I haven't really understood the knocking of Miles. I mean, he made a couple of blues. It's only his third game, and in previous weeks, he's been in and out. But again, he's another lad that he's tough around the contest. He's really good overhead for his size, Miles Paholke.
Just watching, and you know that because how often, even when he's on players that are bigger than him, his teammates kick to him. They trust him to take that mark.
Yeah,
I noticed that too, Nicky.
Vardy Magic in the chat represents. I have a lot of respect for Vardy Magic. He's been with us probably longer than anyone. But I've got to say, Vardy, I don't see what you're seeing with regards to your comment of Paholke not maybe having what it takes. I think he's got it in spades, to be honest with you. I really do.
No, Vardy Badge just said his issue is that he looks too small. So it's just purely so. But that's the way he also runs. He kind of hunches over and he has a little bobblehead movement, which is hilarious.
He's 186 centimetres. He's not short.
No, he's not short, and he's a really solid body. He's not quick like Jordan is. Jordan's got a lot more speed to him.
Mm.
But
he's tough and he doesn't get knocked out of the way.
No, he's going to be your inside mid, and Gooch is going to be your outside.
Yeah, so I agree with that.
God, Nicky, you are on fire.
Nah, she's going well tonight. She almost gets the best on. Almost. Lockie Murphy was reasonably quiet, but his old man was entertaining after the game, so that probably makes him get another week.
His old man was funny.
Yeah. A Chief, I think he was called. Darcy Fogarty wasn't in the game all that much, but by Christ.
He causes chaos.
Bloody don't argue that he did. That was fantastic.
Lockie Murphy.
Hang on, we've moved on already, Nick.
No. Fogarty was going to get a really good mark, and Murphy just comes barreling in from the side and hurts himself, and then gives Fogarty a blood nose.
Yeah, well, Fogarty, I reckon, tweaked his knee in the first, in a contest.
No, he got a kick. He got a kick on it.
Yeah,
you can actually see it's in the second quarter.
Yeah. Northern End. Yeah.
They came in. Yep. Southern End.
No, he did it before then, Nick.
First quarter. He got a kick on the knee, and you can see him get up, and they do a shot from behind the goal, and he does a limp forward.
Yeah.
So he's out there for a bit. Then he went off, and they just strapped it up. And he just came back on. And was like, right, you hurt me, I'm going to hurt you lot.
Yeah. And you only have to listen to the commentary when Wayne Carey's commentating Darcy, and I'm sure Duck reckons he's looking in a mirror. He plays so much like Carey. Can't wait to see what he brings. Yeah, can't wait to see what he brings long term, Darcy. I just hope we don't burn him too much. And Source down the bottom didn't get a lot of it, but 54 hit-outs, and I felt like his hit-outs were fairly effective simply because it was a night that suited him. He didn't have to jump.
And he can't, but he dominated.
Well, I mean, that's what it boils down to. He didn't have to jump. I mean, he bugger all around the ground. Only took one mark for the night. Got 5 kicks, but 54 hit outs, and we won the stoppage clearances fairly comfortably. So I felt like his tap work was a little bit better though, Macca. I don't know whether it was just coincidence or what have you, but I felt like he was hitting it to our advantage a little bit more than he has been over the last month or so.
Yeah, I thought he had a good game in terms of being a ruckman, but you're right about the field play. It was almost non-existent.
Yeah, I mean, luckily Tom Boyd didn't do much around the ground either, so it was a nil or draw around the ground. I think Boyd and Sauce, but that's all right. Look, I mean, it was a very dour game overall, but it was entertaining because of the weather and with the interest, obviously, on the Crows, given our massive injury list. What is it? 9 out of our current 22 not playing.
Well, you can almost argue that the conditions suited us in the sense that if you haven't got your best team out there, but you've got 22 players that will give a maximum effort, then the conditions are probably tailor-made to suit you to go as well as you can. And it just worries me a little bit. If we go up to Alice Springs and we've got hard, dry ground, and we're playing Melbourne, who are a bit on fire at the moment, it just makes me wonder how we're going to go.
Yeah, look, it's a danger game next week against Melbourne, I think. Obviously a massive win today against Carlton, and their midfield is pretty strong. But again, we have ways of kicking goals that a lot of other teams don't, and Melbourne only have 1 or 2 outlets and a workmanlike defence. But I think if Greenwood and Ellis Yeoman and Gibbs can continue their work rate, I don't think Greenwood or Cameron are going to get brushed off the ball too easily. So Melbourne midfield certainly won't have it all their own way.
Well, the thing that when we do play Melbourne is that I think all week we should be learning to set up against a winning ruck of the opposition, because Max Gawn is dominating the rucks at the moment.
Yeah, we just need Fogg to come in and give him a massive corky in a forward line ruck contest, and that'll do it.
No, I think you need to take away his teenage chick flicks, because he likes to watch them the morning of the game. Just make sure he doesn't have access. Yeah, he watches teenage chick flicks before a game. Apparently,
where do you get this crap from?
It was in an article today that he wrote before the thing. He's a bit different. Yep.
Teenage chick flick.
Yep, he likes them. Like Freaky Friday and something else. I don't know.
Oh, good. Anyway, without further ado, let's get on to our awards. Jet of the Week, first of all.
Oh, see, I reckon there's 4.
There
you
is.
can kind of put in here.
You've got scenes. You're going to actually wait for the bloody music?
Sorry.
Sometimes. Anyway, go on, Nikki. What were you saying?
Sorry, we haven't had music for a while. We're used to not having music, and I don't like pauses in the podcast.
Oh, thanks, Mrs. That's it. You were going to get best on.
No.
You were going to get an honorary Jet of the Week award, but you get stuff now.
No, it's because of your training of telling us don't allow there to be pauses, etc.
Yeah, it's my fault.
It's your fault now.
Yep.
It's always my fault.
Totally.
The funny thing is, when this podcast finishes, it's always my fault too. Anyway, keep going.
Yeah, because I think you've got Gibbs, you've got Seaman, and you've got Ellis Yeoman and Greenwood.
And you've got Eddie Betts.
Yeah, well, you got to pick one.
Yeah, that takes it to 5.
So who are you going to pick?
Oh,
I don't like pauses in the podcast.
No, well, I'll just keep going.
I'll go for Gibbs. I'll go for Gibbs in this one.
Nikki, I'll go along with you.
Yeah, that's 3 for Gibbs. Very close call, but I think for 4 quarters of solid footy, I think Gibbsy gets it. Now, I'm about to play some music, Nikki, for our Breakout Award. One moment, please. Bit of Foo Fighters there. Now, this is obviously the people that are eligible here Ellis Yeoman, Huey Greenwood, Tommy Duday, Miles Paholke, and Jordan Gallucci, and Lockie Murphy, and Darcy Fogarty, about a third of the team.
Yeah.
Which is good.
Mm.
I think I'll give it to Cam.
Yeah, we've had Greenwood for others, and I think it's line ball between the pair of them. But just the way that Ellis Yeoman was standing up in that first half for me.
Yeah, I'm with you. Greenwood could have got it, but he's had it before, so we'll give it to. And my vote is Cam.
Well, I'm giving it to Cameron Greenwood because I can't split them. It could have been Hugh Ellis Yeoman. But it's going to be Cameron Greenwood. I can't split them. They were both awesome.
Not unhappy about that at all.
Yeah. And see if we can pick someone out for this award this week. I'm not sure about the Wake Up Award this week, but I'll be interested to hear your thoughts.
Luke Beveridge.
One moment, please. It's a bit quiet this one. Obviously, Rory Atkins is probably the standout candidate. 9 possessions, 3 tackles.
An absolute Monty for it.
Anyone else
If you have to give it, the trainer did a hammy.
Oh,
well, I got to
caught out of position.
Oh God! They said today he claims he hasn't done a hammy. It was cramp.
He's not the fittest bloke out there.
Got hamstring awareness. You can't tell us otherwise. What I'd really like the club to do, and I've actually emailed the club about this, I really, for shits and giggles, want to see them include the trainer on our ins and outs injury list this week, just to take a bit of the piss, because we need a bit of a laugh.
Well, he's undoubted.
Pikey did it in the aftermath. Go and watch his aftermatch. It's hilarious because he talks about injuries. Oh, no, we've got one. It's the trainer. It's hamstring wear.
Yeah. Well, the way we cover up injuries, I reckon he's done his hamstring, and they don't want to have another hammy on the list, so they called it cramp.
Well, we'll have to keep an eye and see if he makes the trip up to the TIO. So Rory for mine, I'd look not a night for him, but I don't think he handled it very well. Something for him to work on.
He didn't.
Thankfully, we don't get too many of those. Nikki, guess what I've got for you?
Hey!
Notice how my cock my Womble had a cock in it?
That's because you've mixed something. Whereas I had to do, I was doing low tech, which meant we only had the Womble song.
I mixed a Womble and a cock.
Whatever.
I'm not saying anything.
So we kind of have to go with the most punchable face in football just to keep Peter happy. Luke Beveridge, because that's stupid. Whatever he did on Friday night.
From start to finish.
Yeah, it was piss poor.
Like his pre-game, he didn't look like he knew what was going on.
No, he looked like he was on something, And seriously, I better be careful about that. He'll sue me or something. But no, you didn't, Luke. You look very intelligent. But he was very. Put it this way, he was very vague both before and afterwards. He didn't seem to know what had hit him. I was surprised actually. I thought he was a better speaker than that.
Yeah. Go
on. So PJ's nominated Kane Corns for his comment regarding Charlie Dixon that apparently he's struggling because he keeps getting the best defenders.
Oh, sorry. No, Kane Corns must get it because in the
you just won't mack her up.
Yep.
Yeah, no, Triple M in their broadcast of the game, Kane sat there with a Port Adelaide cap on at the
he interviewed Andrew Fagan with a Port Adelaide cap on before the game for SEN.
Yeah, and he wore it deliberately, and I just think that is just absolutely shows the taste that man has
Mako,
got.
come on, he's taking the piss.
Yeah, but he's got no class at all. No class at all.
Well, that's a bit of a given.
Yeah, I reckon the umpire that bloody paid that sliding in rule deserves a bit of a shout-out for Cockwomble.
Yeah, that was going to be the next nomination. I think Dunstall is right that technically under the rule, it might get the tick of approval that it was okay under that stupid rule.
Oh, Nikki, they're running in the same direction.
I know it is, but it's the way the rule's written, Macca.
I'll tell you the thing that bothers me about it, though, and it's the same with every rule in the game at the moment. And players have got to start to own this because they're contributing to it. He actually made that happen. The Bulldogs player,
yes, he did.
Made that happen.
Correct.
And it's just the same as diving for a push in the back, or a free in a marking contest, or a hold, or whatever. He dead set staged that. He could have avoided Talia. He could have jumped over him. He could have ran to the side of him. He got beaten to the ball, and he basically did what the soccer players do when they're trying to get past the player and a foot gets stuck out. Whether it makes contact or not, they just dive, and that's exactly what he did. He just ran straight into Talia.
He dropped the knees, and his arms immediately went out, looking at the umpire, going,
Yep.
"Oh, didums." Yep. But to be fair, later on, Richard Douglas did exactly the same thing. He instigated the contact, and he got a free, and I don't think that one should have been either, because he instigated the contact.
I think you're correct, but I think this one was more blatant.
The problem is that this rule was brought in to protect the players. And if the players are going to start to exploit rules that are brought in specifically to protect them, then they've only got themselves to blame. And, I think at times the players need to take responsibility for how they play the game. And it's all right for highlighting a free kick that, if you get held, and you pull back a little bit more just to make sure the umpire's seen it, that's one thing. But to actually contribute to free kicks, exploiting rules that are there to stop you from getting a broken leg, well, I don't think you're doing yourself any favours, and I don't think the players are doing themselves any favours if they're going to start doing that.
Yeah, it's spot on. It's once again, it's the AFL trying to stop these injuries,
which is fair enough.
Yeah, which is fair enough, but they never ever think of the consequences of their rule changes, and then they have to keep changing them because they didn't sit down and logically think ahead, which everybody does. As soon as it comes out, we all go, yeah, but what happens if this happens? That's not going to work.
Yeah, but Nick, they can't cover every consequence, and this is what I mean.
No, they can't.
That situation, that free kick wouldn't have been paid if Webb didn't decide to stage for a free. And that's what I mean. The players need to take that responsibility, I think. Yes,
and if anybody had Foxtel and watched the halftime, if you're watching the replays or whatever, go back, watch them discuss it, and the disgust from Paul Roos towards Webb for doing that, it just kind of tells you that if he was one of his players, I don't think we would see Webb playing for a while.
Anyway.
But that's it. No, this one got to be one more.
All right.
China.
Oh,
yeah, China.
Yeah. Wasn't that the...
Apparently there was 10,000 people there. Really?
Wasn't.
Where?
There really wasn't. So whose fault? Who makes that number? Is it Gill?
Gill was the one I think gave the number out. What I'd like to know is financially, how much is this going to cost and who's paying for it?
Well, we paid for it, didn't we? South Australian government?
Yeah, apparently. Yeah, taxpayers normally.
Well, I hate to see money go in that direction. It's a waste of bloody time. Absolute waste.
Will we see Gold Coast go up there again? I don't think we will. I think they might send a Melbourne club up next year.
Well, they're going to have to pay them a lot of money to do so, because which of those Melbourne clubs is actually going to want to do it?
What are we actually trying to achieve with this China thing again? I know it's a port junket to try and network and all the rest of it, and they've got 2/5 of 5/8 of bugger all at the moment out of it.
I think my vote.
Allegedly, grow the game in China when they haven't got the ovals to play it on, because that oval is actually a soccer pitch with the athletic runarounds around it, so it doesn't normally have it's not normally completely covered in grass. They haven't got the ovals there to play it on anyhow.
Yeah.
Wasted
The only other cockwomble I'd say is Channel 7 with Roving Brian. I mean...
Oh, he's atrocious.
Have you ever seen a more lowbrow bloody 10 minutes of wasted time? And, I know it's a tough gig to walk around a bloody change rooms after a game, try to talk to players and people that don't want to talk to you, but it's just so amateur hour. It's not funny.
Roving moron.
Oh, look, and, I don't mind a bit of BT at times, and he's trying to polish a turd with that one. I understand, but seriously, can we just move on?
Yeah, I must have.
I just quite liked Eddie looking for his kids. That was the funny bit.
Eddie
He was
could
just
give
like,
a
"Where are
rat's
my kids?"
ass, yeah.
Yeah, he was more. You had to go find his children. That was slightly more important than talking to Brian.
Anyway, we better wind it up, guys. Sorry, Macca, I've cut you off there.
Who are we going to give it to?
Who do you want to give it to?
You start off with Beveridge. Give it to him.
All right.
Yeah, we'll give it to him.
Right,
I don't like it.
Better give him a thing. I went a bit early with the closing thing. Yeah, good on you. Thanks, Luke. All right, that is it for us. Thanks very much to the people on the chat. Nice to see American Crow amongst it there tonight. Don't forget, you can listen to us on iTunes and leave us a review if you like. Also, you can catch us on our website, aflcrowcast.com, Facebook and Twitter at aflcrowcast. We will be back on Tuesday night for Tuesday Night Live. Until then, Macca and Nikki, thank you so much. Nikki, you win tonight. You're an absolute legend. But
Cheers.
Don't be a flash in the pan. Got to bring it every week.
I try.
Night all.
Good night.
Night.